Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Open Concept Podcast. We're breaking down those unnecessary walls and barriers that stand in the way of greatness. My goodness, we got a show for you today. My man, Mike Brown, founder of Unbreakable Wealth, platform focused on helping individuals and families build resilient long-term financial foundations. Through his work, Mike emphasizes some practical strategies we're going to talk about today for wealth creation, disciplined money management, developing the mindset needed to achieve financial independence. And he's got some stories to tell. So if you are new to Mike's world, buckle up because we are going to get into some stuff. And if I hope Mike has some time for us today to talk about his book that he just dropped on me that we're going to talk a little bit about. We were talking offline, and Mike, you've been in monk mode, as you called it, for the last little while, just like head down, just getting some stuff, man. Tell us about the book. What's going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely say that the creative process is so much different than the entrepreneurship process, because as an entrepreneur, you know, if you're stuck, if you're at a ceiling, like you can always just like put your head down and grind, and like something will eventually happen. The creative process is 180 out from that, because inspiration, you know, isn't linear. So, you know, I can't just like sit down and write 1,000 words a day and then finish the book. Like you have to sit with it. Some days you can't write anything. Some days you write a whole bunch, and it just evolves over time. And so it's really it's really taught me a different way of being, and it's just been an awesome process.
You're so right. Like you can look at spreadsheets, you can figure out what you need to do when you're looking at a P&L sheet, and you know, make cuts here, scale this up here, pull these levers over here. But if you're not finding that creative space that's going to allow you to get what's in your heart and your soul materialized into words, like there's no way, like you can't just say I'm putting the blinders on and I'm gonna hammer out 3 chapters today and it's gonna be absolute fucking magic. Like you just can't do that. But it's that fine line. I mean, you tell me, but I imagine it's that fine line though of like being disciplined, probably writing, iterating, just getting words out. And there is a process to that of being rigorous in that process. Like maybe it's not the first draft that comes out really well, but it's the idea of like, I'm just going to write. At least I can control that. I'm going to write. And if it's garbage, I'm going to start it over again. But at least like you're getting that out on paper, figuring out what works, what doesn't work. But walk us through like what's been your journey of writing this book. Cause it's been a while, man. You were telling me offline, like I'm stoked how proud you are of this thing.
For 2.5 years of my life.
Wow.
And, you know, it's really interesting. The draft that I started with 2.5 years ago, I've burned down the book and rewritten it. And I'm on my 4th iteration, and finally got to a place where like I'm really proud of what I have. And I turned my last draft in December and got it back from my editor, and I was just like, this isn't it. Like it's good, it's fine, but like it's not delivering what I really wanted to say to the world. And again, you know, different from entrepreneurship, you know, the kind of going in position is like just ship and then iterate later. Well, a book's a little bit different, right? Like, and so I kind of went through this weird process of like, am I self-sabotaging? Am I afraid to put this out? Like, why do I keep rewriting it? And where I came to was like, no, I know what I'm capable of. I know what it's going to feel like when it lands. And I'm so glad that I waited and got to the place where I was like, yeah, this is it. And like I knew in my body, like this was what I was trying to set out to do. And yeah, I'm really proud of it. It's it's been a journey. It's intense, and man, it's so rewarding. And I would say like the best thing about it is now like I'm going to release it later in the summer, and the book did the work on me. Like in the process of writing this book, I became a writer. Like I found my voice, I found what worked. And it took those iterations to really get to that place where I go, okay, now I can actually codify my process. Like it's working. So it's really cool.
I think it's super important what you just said, right? The writing of the book developed you into the writer, because most people would think I need to do more writing before I can actually be a writer. Right? That's that mindset block of shifting your identity through the process once the process starts. Right. I share the same thing. You know, when I first started the podcast, I was like, okay, well, who's going to listen to me? Who am I going to talk to? I don't even like the sound of my voice. Nobody else is going to, all these things. Right. And it took me a long time knowing that I wanted to do it. It's something that was in my heart, but it took a lot of barriers to get over to just start on the microphone. And now we're 75 episodes deep and we're here, and it just feels like second nature coming through. And I can confidently say, man, I'm happy to be here, to be interviewing people and just going deep, man. But it very much is a process.
Yeah, totally. And like, the best advice is just start. Like you can't become a writer if you never start writing.
Yeah. Same thing with getting through the gym, man, or getting to the gym. Like I tell people all the time, right? It's often the front door is the heaviest thing that you're going to lift that day.
Yeah, right? I love that. And that same, people coming into my work, they're like, well, I really need to get my finances in order before I join. I'm like, well, that's actually the point. That's what we're doing here. It's like I'm going to work out at home before I join the gym.
Yeah. You know what? I was talking to a financial advisor friend of mine, and we were having this conversation, and he says that the mindset, the conversations that come through his door every time when people come, it's generally all the same. And in his words, he says, somebody will come to him with $10,000, and he'll say, "Oh, I know that's not that much, but here's $10,000. I know it's not much." Somebody will come with $100,000 and they'll say, "It's only $100,000. It's I know it's not that much." And somebody else will come to him with $500,000 and say, "Well, here's it's $500,000. I know it's not that much." And that was the same thing. It was like there's always this belief that what you're doing is never enough. And I don't know if that's just a balance between who you are now, who you want to be, where you think you are now versus where you think that you should be. But I just thought that was interesting. It didn't really matter how much money you had. It always seemed to come down to it wasn't enough, or it didn't feel like enough to that person.
I think it's a great place to dive, because one of the first questions I help people answer is how much is enough. And there's sort of this belief in our culture that we'll always move the goalposts. It's never enough, and so you just keep building. But I don't think that's true. I think you can actually determine how much is enough. And that doesn't mean when you hit enough, you're going to give up and ride off into the sunset. But the process I try to help people walk through is, first of all, let's determine the life you want to live. Like, what does your dream life actually look like? And then let's find out how much it costs. And based on that, now we can actually back into how much is enough, right? And then if you get more money beyond that, you can do really cool things that, a lot opens up to you. But like finding the number and not moving the goalposts and going, I actually know there's a number, it's doable, and I'm either on the right track, so I'm going to keep going, or I'm not on the right track and I need to make a change.
How does somebody come up with that number? I mean, it might be, what might be considered your freedom number, or whatever that looks like based on a lifestyle that you have, or a lifestyle that you want. I think where a lot of people get mixed up is, okay, well, one is there's a lifestyle that I want, a life that I want to live. You call it the dream life, right? And here's the dream life. Now, that dream life may not cost that much money, but that might not be their real dream life. But they feel like this is a life that may be realistic for them. And maybe that they aren't dreaming big enough because they feel like that may not be a reality for them. And that on their own is the same thing. It comes to building a business. right? It's all right. I would love to have a business doing $1 million in revenue a year. I would love to have a business doing $10 million in revenue a year. And then somebody says, hey, well, why don't you put another zero on that? And you're like, what? I'm making it like that. How do I do that? Maybe that's for somebody else. That's not for me. So how do you go and determine, all right, here's the dream life that you want versus pushing back and saying there's a level past that if you do the right things that I just want you to be open to.
Yeah, this is a fantastic question, because really what you're pointing to is holding the paradox of like, how can I create this felt sense of enoughness and contentment without giving up on my dreams and like still hold ambition? And those two things actually aren't in tension if you go about the process properly, right? So
Okay.
the first thing I have people do is go through an exercise I call Unbreakable Year, where you design your ideal year and exactly what it looks like. And I really do encourage people, like, dream big, dare to dream. So a great example is, do you like where you live? Well, when I ask that question, people immediately go to the excuses like, well, my parents live here, my kids are in school here, like I couldn't possibly move. So let's suspend space-time for a minute. Do you like where you live, and where would you be living if it was your dream? And the thing I tell people is separate knowing from action, right? Because one of the things that keeps us stuck is if we name a goal out loud, like entrepreneurs are problem solvers, right? So if we name a goal out loud, that means we need to take action on the goal, right? Mm-hmm. But what I tell people is like, hey, if you come up with an idea, like if you don't like where you live, that doesn't mean you have to put a for sale sign in the front yard the next day. Like you can say, well, I'll be there in 5 years or whatever. And so it's separating knowing from action actually enables us to really, dream out loud and kind of design that life. And once you've designed that Unbreakable Year, we price it out. How much does this cost? And if you want Lamborghinis and houses in Cabo and private jets and all that, like, cool, like write it all down and find out how much that costs. But the reality is, I work with a lot of successful founders. What they find is most of them are either A, within striking distance, or already have enough to live their dream life. And it's not actually more money that they need. It's making some changes around how they spend their time and like what they're doing with their work. Like most of the things that we need to live our dream life are actually free. So those are the two big realizations. Probably don't need as much money as I thought I did. And the changes I need to make are available to me right now.
Well, you say the things that are a lot of the stuff that we love are free, and the things that they don't cost a lot of money. Right. I'll give you an example. The things that, if you were to like narrow it down, and the things that mean most to me and the moments that I find most precious, right? I have 2 young daughters, and I love being able to go down to the beach. I live, I'm blessed to live a street back from the beach here, and I go down there every morning, and it's awesome to have them down there and knowing that they live in a place that they can grow up in. But like going and sitting on a log at the beach doesn't cost any money. Going and having these conversations and listening to them, it doesn't cost any money. Going for a skateboard down the road might cost the cost of the skateboard. And my daughter's scooter, the cost of a scooter, which, you can buy secondhand for $20. I think we got it as a hand-me-down from our neighbors across the road. Right. So like these things, they don't cost any money. And like, this is a sense of feeling of joy that you get from something that really doesn't cost anything. But there's still this driving factor that's in so many of us, this not enoughness of understanding, all right, I have $1,000 in the bank. That's not enough. I have $10,000 in the bank. I have $500,000 in the bank. It's not enough. Like you wake up in the morning and there's still this like gut feeling like you're not doing enough. You're not making enough. Like you're scrolling on Instagram, or you're talking with other friends that are, maybe in the space and they're a little bit further ahead than you are. And you think that you got to, grind to sort of get to this point. And this feeling of not enoughness is real. This feeling of not having enough is real. I imagine this is something that you deal with on a regular basis.
Totally. And I mean, this is really one of the central themes in the book is like, okay, there's external enoughness, right? And that's what we just talked about. What's my dream life? How much does it cost? I can back into my number now. But that actually doesn't really solve the problem because of what you just said, which is enoughness is actually an internal feeling. And so as long as we're outsourcing that internal feeling to external conditions, we're falling into the trap of I'll finally be happy when. I'll finally be happy when I have that $10 million. And everybody knows, I think everyone has achieved some goal they said would make them happy, and it didn't, right? But we keep repeating the process of being like, well, maybe the next one. And so how do you cultivate that internal sense of enoughness while still honoring, that we want to grow and we want to build our business and all of that? And it's finding joy in the process and understanding that, like, okay, here's what like truly external enoughness looks like. I can calculate it. I know what it's going to be. And, to your point about the beach, all of that's free, but you still had to buy the house at the beach.
Still gotta buy a house close to the beach to make that happen, right?
Yeah,
like
so
on that regular cadence, 100%.
Right, to get to that place where now you can experience these things for free.
Yeah.
So like, some money is better than no money. Like, period. Like, it is better to be rich than poor. I've been both. Rich is better. Like, it creates more ease, but it can't make you feel, right? So, okay, number one, I think money serves two primary functions. First is close the open loops, meaning, not having enough money to pay your bills creates anxiety. It's really hard to feel enough and be in the present and enjoy the beach if you're worried about how you're going to pay your mortgage. So let's get that covered first. Let's find this like basic enoughness that covers the bills so we can be free from anxiety. And then the second function, once you've covered the first one, is how do I use my money to increase joy, fulfillment, and the feeling that I'm actually chasing? And what I talk about in the book is that wealth is actually a feeling. It's a feeling of freedom, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't necessarily cost anything, but if you don't have enough, it's really hard to get to that feeling. So cool, let's cover the bases. Let's take ourselves out of anxiety. Let's make enough money to feel safe, to then cultivate that felt sense of freedom.
You probably recall there's a story of, real quick before we get back to the show, if you have heard anything on this podcast that has resonated with you, or if it's helped you in any way, appreciate more than anything in the world if you could go hit that subscribe button or leave us a review. It helps us tremendously. I want to go back to being able to continue to serve and do more and more and help out and get bigger and bigger guests on, better and better. The only way that I can do that is with your help. I'm so honored to be here. Let's get back to the show. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. The fisherman down the the story I'm talking about.
Fisherman, right? Is exactly
exactly. And I do keep reverting to that story, and there's so much truth to it, right? Mm-hmm. Is a sense of like, okay, well, you could go and you could do all these things, but what is that end result? In that case of the story, the end result is he can go through the things, make a very difficult life with the hopes of one day living the life that he wants to live versus just living the life that he wants to live. And the difference is there's the process of doing the thing and finding out. And like you said about the journey, right? Is that fisherman, he could go and live that dream life that he is living right now and not have to go through all the headache and heartache of building the thing to get to the point where he wants to do that. But for a lot of people, there's this driving sensation in their gut that is pulling them forward, that's telling them, I need to fulfill my potential. I'm like, this is what society needs me to do. This is why God put me on earth. This is, whatever's running through the mind. So if they don't go and do that thing and experience the becoming of the person that they're going to create in the building of the thing, then they're going to end up on their deathbed wondering if, man, could I have done more?
Yeah.
Could I have done more?
And this is really a central tension. First of all, the question is, whose game are you playing? Like, where did you form these beliefs about how much is enough, right? Like, I used to think I needed $100 million to be wealthy. Like, that was a number. And you always know that there's not a whole lot of thought behind it. If it's a round number, if someone says 10 million or 1 million or 100 million, that probably means it's an inherited number that they haven't really thought through. Because if you've done the work to actually determine the life you want to live and back into the number, it's not going to be 100 million. It's going to be 13 or some, more specific number. And it's a shift from not what do I need to have, but how do I want to feel, right? So when someone's talking about a purchase, whether it be a house or a car or whatever it is, instead of like, what do I want? I like to ask them, like, how do you want to feel? And then go make the purchase, go buy the car, but then ask yourself, did it make me feel the way I thought it was going to, right? So that's how you can sort of start moving from this external to the internal. It's like, always bring it back to, how do I want to feel from this thing, and is it working for me? And then the other tension that you named, right, is this drive. Like, we are told from the time we were very little that our life is supposed to be an up and to the right. Like, you're always, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? There's all kinds of things that we internalize. Yeah. I like to actually think of it, life as like seasons. So there is a season for grinding and building. Like, when you're in startup mode, right? Like, you're going to be working harder. It's a necessary part of the game. But always keeping in mind of like, what is this for? What am I actually trying to create? How do I want to feel? Well, if I'm doing a startup, it's probably because I'm kind of unemployable and I want to work for somebody else. I want to take a bet. I want to create a better life for myself. Cool. What does that better life actually look like? And so when you get really clear on the desired end state, like the desired outcome, that allows you to start aligning your decisions to actually getting there, instead of just continually moving the goalposts and accepting this idea that we're supposed to just get more. Mm. More is the enemy of contentment. And it's never ending, right? Like, you look at like an Olympic athlete, as soon as they win a gold medal, they're like, okay, what's next? You got to defend your gold medal and go win again, right? Like this treadmill never ends unless we actually define, what is it that I want to do and how do I want to feel on the backside of it. And so, most of us, when we start our business, are driven by what I call dirty fuel, which is childhood wounding, feeling not enough. Like, I'm going to go prove to the world that I'm actually worthy. And the cool thing about this is it works. Like, my core wound growing up with my family, there was 5 kids. We were all high achievers. And if you wanted to get attention at the dinner table, you better have like won your swim meet or got an A on the test.
Yeah.
So it got internalized very early that like, doing external achievements is how I earn love. Well, this is an awesome core wound to have. Like, it drove me to become very, very successful. But then at some point, when I sold my company, and I say this from stage often, like, the day I sold my company, I thought I'd never be unhappy again. I did it. I did the things society told me to do that would fill me up. I had the house, I had the cars, I had the money, like, I sold the company. And the day I sold, everybody started coming to me and was like, I can't wait to see what you do next. And I was
like, I got to do something next. I just did all this shit. Yeah.
And that was hard. And like, now I have to build something bigger and better. And that pressure was crushing. Like, and then the doubts start to surface of like, what if I just got lucky? What if I never build anything this big again? Like, what does that mean about me? Right. And that loop gets really, really heavy really quick. And that's why so many post-exit founders go through this crisis, because if you've been successful once, you're supposed to keep being more successful over and over and over. But what happened for me is I actually started really sitting with that question. And then I was like, wait a minute, what if this is the biggest thing I ever built? How cool. Like, pressure's off. Like, I never have to do that again. So what would I do now? Like, how do I want to spend my days? And, that's how I got into coaching and writing and doing the things I'm doing now. Is like, there is a good chance that my coaching business will never be bigger than the original business that I built. And like, how fun.
You said something really important, and it was this dirty fuel, right? Or this dark energy, this like you're grinding it out from a place in like in your soul, in your gut, like just this anger, this drive, this white knuckling it through to get something done, to prove yourself. But it's not what's going to allow you to keep building over time. And the challenge is what might motivate you now, right? The decisions that you're making right now are defined by who you are, what you know, what you believe to be true. And you can start a company, like you said, you can start a company because maybe you're a little unemployable. You just like, you got this cool idea. You want to go, you want to prove it to the market. You want to make some money. You want to make some money fast. You want to do something cool with your friends, whatever that looks like. But then at some point, that's cool. But at some point, even if this is the same business that you're building, what keeps you going and what keeps you fueled and what keeps you moving forward, that's going to change. Because maybe you're not driven so much by money right now, but you're driven by contribution. And so the decisions that you make, or, whatever that driving factor is, but the decisions that you make are aligned more with that versus what this was. And maybe it's the same vehicle that you're using, but the intentions are different. The frameworks for making decisions have been structured differently. When I started, the company, the main operating company that we're here was a construction company. I found a construction by accident. I didn't know, like I had no plan to get into construction at all. And I started my business because I was laid off and I felt that I could do something better. This was in 2010 when the Olympics came to Vancouver. And I felt this drive, this urge to go and build this thing. And I felt that I could do things better than what I was seeing being done. And that was a starting point. But in the beginning, it was like, it's all about me. It's all about like making some money, because that's all I cared about. Is like, we don't care so much about the customer experience. We say that, but we don't really care that much. It's literally, we just need to put food on the table and get past these hurdles of survival before we can get out of the weeds and even start thinking about, okay, well, what does this mean for somebody else? Because it's so internally has to work for you, but you do grow over time.
Yeah, and this is that experience that I was talking about. Like, everybody stood on top of some mountain of success that they built. That could be their first million, that could be their 100 million, like whatever it is. If it's driven by that dirty fuel, if it's driven by that me energy, you'll stand on that mountain and you'll realize, oh no, this didn't do the thing I thought it was going to do. It didn't make me feel the way I thought. I have more stuff and I have more resources, and like I built something really cool. You can be proud of all of that. But the feeling is very ephemeral. It's very fleeting. Like when I sold my company, best night of sleep of my life. Like it was amazing. And then 2 weeks later, I woke up and I was like, oh no, I'm still the same person as I was before I sold. Like, now what am I going to do about this? And this is what I call the switch to clean fuel. Is, okay, most of us, once we build that first company that is probably me driven, and again, it doesn't mean you're not providing value to your customers or doing the right thing, but the flavor is me, right? As you switch to that clean fuel, we start thinking about we or even them, right? Like, okay, how can I actually do something that impacts what I care about, that's aligned with my purpose, that's aligned with my values, that's aligned with how I want to spend my days? And the thing about the clean fuel is that process can't be forced. And that's the big mistake a lot of people make, is like, okay, built this company for me, got the resources, now I want to make an impact, but they try to use the same process that they did for their first company, rather than, and this is what I offer a lot of post-exit founders, is like, just start trying stuff on. Go find somebody, anybody to help, and just see how that feels. And then keep following the track, and eventually you'll try enough things and go, oh, this actually has some legs. This makes me feel really good, right? Back to that question, how do I want to feel? Oh, cool, I got it now. And then as you start to align, what you're doing professionally with your values, with your purpose, instead of those feelings being fleeting and empty, they actually become sustainable and more embodied. And that's the really cool part. And again, it might be something like coaching or writing like I'm doing, but it can also just be building another big company that's very customer focused, right? Like you can still stay in entrepreneurship and business and build something really big and impactful, but who you're doing it for and then how that energy feeds you starts to shift completely different. And now the success actually serves the function you always thought it would, because it's not just about you. You're included in the greater good, and you still might benefit financially, but it's service oriented. And so that's what I tell people. It's like, go find somebody to help and just start there. and then follow that track until eventually you find the thing that's actually going to light you up.
You used to fly fighter planes.
I did many lifetimes ago. I flew F-18s in the Navy.
A lot of people wouldn't know that, but now they do. Man, and you built an 8-figure company. You've openly said you've lost all that money, built it, had it, lost it, came back through it, came back from it. But what broke at that point?
Yeah.
What was it that broke, and what did it teach you? Because I mean, walk us through what's going on in your mind. You built something great, you had it, you lost it. What's going on? What sort of mindset broke down? Was it a mindset thing? Was it a tactical thing? Like made a poor investment? What was going on in Mike's world?
So I'll give you kind of the whole story, and you can stop me at any point if you have any questions. But I had built my life on achievement, like we talked about. Like if I could just do the right things, that's the path, and that's the path so many of us take. Right, work hard in school, get good grades, go to a top university, get a great job. Maybe that job's not serving us. Now we start the company. Like mine was flying jets in the Navy is like the pinnacle, right? It's like I was in this elite fighter squadron. It was an amazing experience. I went and tested myself in combat. Got out in 2012. I moved back to my hometown and worked with a family friend, a mentor, and then started my own thing. And it was the best time in the history of oil and gas to be in oil and gas. We were in the middle of a gold rush. And we actually became quite successful quickly. I made $1 million in my first deal after getting out, starting my own company, which was amazing experience. I mean, really, really cool. But we got so much success so fast. There was a part of me, and this is in hindsight.
Yeah.
Part of me didn't feel worthy of that success because we have this deeply intertwined narrative in our society of like work hard and you'll be successful. Success requires suffering. You've got to grind. And like, we didn't really grind. We were in a really booming industry with a lot of tailwind, and we made a lot of money really fast.
Yeah.
But that left me with this kind of feeling of like, I've got to give back. So I started angel investing. I started writing checks. And my thesis was, I want to help other veterans achieve the same kind of success that I have, which is like, it's a really altruistic driving force. But I was doing it at the detriment of my own well-being. Like I was writing checks that were outsized in my net worth. I made like 25 angel investments over the course of a couple of years, like poured $2.5 million into angel investments. By the way, I'm the world's worst angel investor.
Like most angel investors, they have a similar story, right? They start down that path and they're like, yeah, I wasn't great. I had money, but it wasn't great.
Well, yeah, and the reason I was doing this is because I thought that's what rich people did. Like we pedestalize these people that create big tech companies and then build VC firms. Like that's kind of the path. Like you're supposed to become an angel investor after you're successful. Like that's the narrative that we're handed. And so I just thought I was doing the thing. I was doing what I was supposed to do. And now looking back, like had I taken that money and just put it in the S&P, I would have like $7.5 million. Well, I will be incredibly lucky if I get my money back from those investments, and most likely will not. So I was financially sabotaging myself by shotgunning money into all these crazy deals. And then I sold my company, and the what's next thing really started weighing on me heavily. I went through a divorce, so 0 out of 10 recommend for wealth preservation. Hurt. And then I started to feel the pressure. And I bought a turnaround, I bought a failing e-commerce company. I had this great plan. My wife runs a marketing agency. I'll buy this company. I'll clean up the debt. I'll plug her agency in. We'll 3 to 5x the value in 2 years, and like I'll walk away with a home run. And I was doing that because I thought I needed $100 million to be rich. And the way I got my first chunk, which I made 8 figures in my first exit, was betting on myself, going all in, taking risks, burning the boats.
Yeah.
So I just naturally kept doing the thing that worked, but I was writing checks and taking risks that were way outsized to my net worth. I bought the company and it was an abject failure. Like the wheels fell off, The minute we bought it, it got worse. And I found myself shoveling $100,000 a month into this company, trying to just cover payroll. And like from pretty early after we closed, like I knew it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm a good operator. I can see the writing on the wall. Like this thing is not going to turn. But I was so committed. And really, I like to say, like, I was carrying the arrogance of someone who had never truly lost at anything. And so, like, that identity kept me in this thing long after I should have just exited and cut my losses. But I was watching my bank account, like, dwindle towards zero. And there was days I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning to, like, face the day. Yeah. And I got to give a lot of credit to my wife here. I remember one day sitting in bed and I just said, like, I don't want to get up today. And I think a really good wife would have been like, no, honey, like you got this. And my wife said, cool, stay in bed. I'll run your company. Like, and that was just the most incredible feeling of like, oh man, I've got a partner that like, she has my back.
That's cool.
But eventually we get to this place where it's like, okay, I'm running out of money. So now I have to make a really hard decision. Made the decision to sell the company for a massive loss. I lost about $1.5 million in 18 months. And it was the greatest gift I'd ever received in my life. I mean that with like, I wish upon everyone a failure that brings you to your knees that doesn't make you start completely. Like, luckily, I was very cash poor at this time, but I had a bunch of investments that I shotgunned out there. So I didn't have to start completely over. But I learned this deep lesson in humility. Number one, I realized I was addicted to risk. Like I was, swinging for the fences, trying to get to this crazy number that had no basis in reality. And then two, I wasn't being a good steward of my resources. Like the reality is, after my first exit, I should have never had to work again. Had I been a good steward of those resources. But I got those resources by swinging for the fences. So I just kept the same operating system in place. And looking back, we all know like the difference in a startup and a scale up. Like in a startup, you burn the boats, you make it work, you wear all the hats, you do all the work, you rob Peter to pay Paul, you wait for the vendor to pay so you can make payroll. But we sort of normalize that. And to get to scale up, we have to change our skill set, right? We have to become a CEO who can hire people and delegate and build systems. Wildly different from being a startup CEO.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes when we talk about finances. Like when we start out, we have nothing to lose. We take big bets. We bet on ourselves. But eventually, we need to transition to becoming a defender of our wealth and then a steward of our wealth. And really, like I didn't need to be taking those risks. Right? I needed to be protecting what I'd already built. And so, that's the thing that I looking back, I didn't know to make that shift because no one's out there saying that. Like I'd never heard that before. I thought I was supposed to be an angel investor. So, that's the thing that forced me to my knees. I wish that I could say I was a big hero and I had some amazing realization and turn it around. No, it took losing almost everything that I built to force me to have a reckoning and go, like, why am I making these decisions?
Well, you see this a lot, right? It's the guy or the girl that works hard. They get the car, they drive it around for 6 months, and then they tell the world, they flip the phone around, they go on social media, and they're like, you know what? This car, I thought it was everything. And it turns out that I actually don't really like it. It didn't change anything inside of me that I was hoping it was going to change. It was kind of cool for a little bit. And then you see, everybody that's watching, they're thinking, yeah, that's cool, but you did the thing. And I hear what you're saying, but I still need to go and do the thing to find this out for myself. What's going on there?
Yeah. And this is actually what I tell people, it is kind of, I don't know, it's easy to dismiss, my message is, yeah, but you're already rich. So how can you tell me money's not everything? Like you're living the good life. You live in this amazing house. You have the cars, you've done this stuff. Like it does sound kind of trite. So I tell people, like, buy the ticket, take the ride. But again, center on this question of like, how do you think this is going to make you feel, or how do you want to feel? And then check, is it doing the thing that you want? And your car example is exactly right. Like I love cars. I grew up with a Lamborghini poster on my wall. And as soon as I started making money, I started buying really cool cars. And it was awesome. Like it did feel the way I wanted to feel. I was going to track meets. I was, in car culture, super fun. But then eventually, a couple of years ago, I got a new Lamborghini, and my wife came to me and she said, "When was the last time you drove a Lambo?" Went out in the garage, and I put 800 miles on this car in a whole year. It's like I wasn't actually enjoying the thing anymore the way I used to. And so, what that means is, A, I don't regret my season of buying cars, but I was being really clear of like, okay, well, this isn't serving the same need that it used to serve. And now it's just a decoration, and it's still a significant portion of my net worth tied up in this thing that's actually not bringing me joy. So I like to kind of think of your life design as a Marie Kondo process, constantly asking of everything that you own, does this bring me joy? And if yes, keep it unapologetically, like do the thing. But if no, let it go. Thank it for the role it played in your life, and make room for something new.
I can ask you another question on this topic. I got so many questions to get through, man. So like bear with me here, but I gotta ask again though. There's this question of, does this bring me joy, right? And you think about it, like, all right, there was a season where this really did bring me joy. It may not be bringing me joy in this season because I don't have the time to do it. My focus is other places. But then there's always this thought in the back of my mind of, will it bring me joy again? Will I find the time in my life, because having the Lamborghini, having the, whatever, insert X, I really did enjoy that. Now I don't. But is there going to be a part of me that is going to find time and find space to enjoy that again? I think that's where people have that trouble disconnecting is this a part of me for good? Is this something that I need? Is this just a season in which I don't have the time to focus on it right now, but could it bring me joy in the future? So I'm going to continue holding on to it. I'm going to continue, fulfilling this part of my life because I believe that at some point I will find joy in it again.
Yeah, it's a really good question. My answer would be, there are very few one-way doors in life, right? There are some big levers that are really important. Number one, who you marry, or who you choose as a partner. Huge lever, tough to unwind if you mess that up, right? Yeah. I know from experience. Number two is where you live. Like where you live, buying a house, whatever. You can definitely move, but it's tougher to unwind than a lot of things. But something like a car is really not that hard, right? So I decided to sell the Lambo and just see how I feel. So again, back to that same question. Sold the Lambo in the moment. There was like a pang of regret of like, oh no. And then I just found this spaciousness start to open up. And like not literally in my garage, but like in my heart and my cognitive load. Like I was spending money caring for this thing, servicing, like it was taking up space in my life that was outsized to the joy that it was actually bringing me. And it was like a really surprising realization of like, oh man. And my friend Kevin loves to say, everything you own owns a piece of you. Mm-hmm. And I really found that to be true. I had this money tied up in cars. And as soon as I let that go, the cognitive load, the energy that I got back was so liberating. And there is another season in my life where I will buy another cool car again. Like I promise you, like there will be another day and another time where I get the itch again. And like, neither are right or wrong, right? It's what season of my life are we in? And I think seasons are such an important idea because we tend to be really rigid. We tend to be like, I need to find my purpose. I need to, optimize all of these areas of my life, right? Health, wealth, time, like all of this stuff needs to be optimized all the time. And a lot of self-help or, coaching sells this dream of like, you need to be a 10 out of 10 across all areas. Really, that's just not possible. And if you might achieve it for like one day or like 2 weeks, but something's going to break and it's going to go out of whack again. So when I look at my life and look at the categories of wealth that I've defined for myself, I give myself a number. I go, okay, not is this number rating objectively good, but is it serving the season of life? So like health is a great example. If you have 2 toddlers, you're probably not going to be the fittest you've ever been in your life. right? Like you're not sleeping well. It's tough to find time to work out. But instead of beating yourself up for not being super fit, you just go, oh, I'm in toddler season. When they're 10, I'll probably have more time to work out, right? So you're making trade-offs based on the season that you're in. And like, and I love this for entrepreneurs because again, it contradicts this up and to the right mentality. There's seasons where it's appropriate to grind and push. Like if you're in a high growth season of your business, like go for it. Like put your head down, do some work. But then you also need a season of rest, right? And so just continuing asking, what season am I in? What's going to serve this season? Knowing that the season might change.
Even a season of rest, I use maybe the term season of stabilization, right? However you want to dress it up, but you're, you're so right. And there's certain things that you're not going to prioritize, right? In this case, like I know for me, jujitsu and MMA was a huge part of my life for many, many years. I still say it's a huge part of my life because it is. It takes up a lot of brain space. But since having kids, I've had to, I don't have the time to get onto the mats like I want to, but I do know that on the other side of this season, that is going to continue to be there. I'm still making it into the gym regularly because that's still a huge part of me, but I'm like, it's easier for me to go to the gym that's 2 minutes away from the street and, crush out a session for 45 minutes to an hour versus spending 2.5 hours in an evening during bedtime, when my kids need me to go and do the thing. But I recognize that on the other side of this season, there's going to be more of that. It's not a depleting resource that's just going to be gone one day.
Really? And can you let yourself off the hook for not being as good at jiu-jitsu right now in this season as maybe you once were, or maybe you will be again?
It still sucks though, seeing all these kids that you used to teach and now they're grinding it. They've come up in their like early teens and 20s and 30s. And like now they're still there. No kids grinding it out, doing well, competing at highest levels. And you're like, oh man, I used to teach that kid. Now he can kick the crap out of me because I'm a little rusty. So, but it is that, that sense that this was once an identity of mine that slowly starts to slip away when you hold on to it. And that's where you start feeling a lot of that pain and anxiety. I think is where that thing that you used to be so connected to, you start feeling that slipping away, and you have to decide, is this still part of me, and is part of me dying, or is this just growth, and knowing that I'll be able to get back to that at some point. But it's a painful thing.
Identity is a really important question that you just brought up.
I have a question on identity. I'm going to ask you, and so I'm rolling into this because how much of financial success is actually a money problem versus an identity problem?
Yes. Both, I would say. Number one is we get really tied to these identities, and then we protect. So kind of what you're saying is, jiu-jitsu was a big part of my identity. I see it's my skill set sort of slipping, and now it's actually an identity level threat, right? The shift is understanding that I am not my identities. Identities are like little hats. I can put a bunch of hats on the wall and I can pick them up and put them on when they're appropriate, and I can set them down when they're not. But your identity is actually not who you are. Who you are at the core, the essence of you, is who you are with no identities, right? It's connection to source. It's the ineffable part of being human. And once you can sort of recognize that identities are basically just costumes, and sometimes it's appropriate to wear this costume, sometimes it's not, it actually creates a deeper felt sense of liberation, right? And so you may need that. I'm a person who makes money. That's an identity, right? That identity might serve you really well, but business is also about luck and timing. And so sometimes you might be knocking out of the park. You might start reinforcing this identity that I'm a person who makes money. Well, if the macroeconomic headwinds turn and all of a sudden the business isn't doing as well, that's not just a business problem. Now it becomes an identity threat. You start feeling like you've lost your worth as a human. And maybe you've made some bad decisions along the way, but often businesses are just facing things outside of their control. So if I can recognize and detach myself from the identity, now I can just solve the problem in front of me rather than layering on this identity threat that actually harms my self-worth and puts me into anxiety and depression. I'm actually freed up to just solve the problem at hand. And that's a really useful framing. The problem with letting go of this I'm successful entrepreneur identity is that when you face those headwinds, right, it's easy to be like, oh, well, those are outside forces beyond my control. We're pretty good at kind of letting go of that. That also means, though, that maybe being successful wasn't under your control as much as you think it is. And that's a hard one for a lot of entrepreneurs to face. Like, the reality is, in my first business, I got really lucky. I hit the industry at the right time. There was a boom happening, like rising tide lifts all boats. And I made really good decisions with the situation that I was given. Both are true, right? But neither one actually mean anything about me as a human or my worth as a human. I just happen to be really good at this thing, and I caught it at the right time. But that doesn't mean I wasn't successful. It doesn't mean that, I don't deserve what I have. But it does mean that, like, my worth as a human is not tied to this thing that happened.
I love what you said there, man. Yeah, absolutely. Like the identity thing is huge. When I go to I go to a party or I go out and a friend introduces me to somebody and they say, hey, this is Brandon. He's a home builder. Oh, this is Brandon. He's he's a contractor. I'm like, and it kind of eats me alive a little bit because in my mind I'm like, that's one thing I do, but that's not who I am. But because it's been so much of who I am for so long that's generally what people associate me with. But there's this sense, this inner burning where it's like, well, I am so much more than that. Like I'm doing this thing. I'm having great conversations with people. I'm a father. I'm a dad. I'm a jujitsu guy. I'm like, I'm all these things that are a big part of my life. I'm not just this person. But that seems to be a tendency in society is to label people. Hey, this is a money guy. Hey, she's a real estate agent. This is so and so, she's a cabinet installer, whatever that is. Like there just seems to be this label because there's no other way to really box that up and unpack everything that everybody is into a single sentence. So it's just like, I'm going to default to the one thing that you're kind of most known for, and that's a lot of how you start to wrap your identity up in that thing. I think is not necessarily internally, but also like the external factors of what you put out there. It plays a huge part.
Yeah. So, the way I frame this is moving from fixed identity to fluid identity. Fixed identity is I am a home builder, I am an entrepreneur, and that's who I am as a person. Fluid identity is realizing like what I do is not who I am. What I am at my core is something much greater, right? Like I'm all of those things, but they're all hats that I wear, costumes that I wear. But who I am in here has nothing to do with what I do in the world, right? The experience of being human, it doesn't matter if you're a great athlete or a great entrepreneur or whatever. Like, what you are at the core as a human has nothing to do with any of that. And so when you can separate that and realize like, oh, I've got this intrinsic worth. Like, I come from, I'm spiritual. I come from source. Like I know what that is. That's the essence of who I am. Yeah. Right. Who was I before the world told me who to be? Right. Like I remember being 6 and just having this whole internal world that I didn't really even consider what anyone thought of me because I didn't know to. And then like somewhere around 3rd grade, it started to shift. I realized like, oh, if I don't wear the right clothes, people aren't going to be my friend. Like, all of these things. Yeah. But like, that was all inherited. That wasn't mine. That wasn't who I was before. And so like connecting with that kid, that part of you that like, who were you before the world told you who to be, right? That's who you actually are. And all of these other things, what you do for work, what you do for hobbies, being a dad, like all of that, they're just costumes. And they're really useful costumes, by the way. And they do make the whole web of all of those things make up who you are as a human. But that's not what you actually are at the core.
When people feel like they're not worthy of money. All right, let's go back to one of the early things that you said is you had said that you were making this money, but you felt like you weren't worthy of it. And maybe that you didn't do enough to earn it. And so you needed to, cut your teeth in doing something and grind a little harder and do the thing until you felt internally like you deserved it. A lot of people have challenges with money, whether it's accepting money from other people whether it's spending money because they're worried, like maybe, it's the whole buying the bag thing, because I feel like I'm not worthy of it. I haven't done enough. I don't feel good enough. Maybe I don't have enough money, or I feel like a percentage of my worth shouldn't be going into this thing. That's stopping them from buying it. And from all over the place, whether it's the Lambo level and I shouldn't buy this Lambo, whether it's the bag and I shouldn't buy this bag, or it's the the very simple thing where it's like buying a massage, and it's like, this $125, I don't feel like I should go and spend it. It's not a good use for money. I don't deserve it. What's going on at that level fundamentally when that's running through your mind, where you feel like I don't deserve the $100 massage that I should go and splurge on because I have other priorities that I should be buying? I feel like this money could go better towards my kids or to something else. And then you just keep putting it on. Or a classic, like, I'm not going to book a vacation because I feel like I haven't earned it. I feel like I haven't put in the time. I haven't gone through enough pain. And this is a very common thing with entrepreneurs that I talked about, right? It's like they can't book the holiday because they feel like they haven't grinded enough. They haven't put enough heart and sweat and soul into something to feel worthy of going away for a week.
Yeah. So what you're touching on is what I call cognitive financial. It's all of the stories that were layered on top of us by society, by our parents, but all of these, and you're naming one end of the spectrum, which is this deserving. Do I deserve this money? Can I spend it on myself? But there are people on the other end of the spectrum that spend all of their money to feel worthy, which that was kind of my flavor, right? I'm investing in writing all of these checks, trying to find worth through spending my money. So, but they're all flavors of the same underlying thing, which is our money story. And our money stories are formed, several ways. Number one, what I like to ask people is, what did you witness from your dad and his relationship to money, and how does that show up for you? And number two, what did you witness from your mom and her relationship to money, and how does that show up for you? Because those are the number one influences we have in our life. And the big operative word there is witness, because our parents love to say one thing and do another. But like, what did I see growing up, and what did I internalize? And then the second layer of that is like, I grew up lower middle class, money was tight in my family in a very wealthy town. So from a very early age, I was acutely aware of what we didn't have that my friends had. Mm. All of those things contributed to this drive. So, there was a time when money was super tight in our family, and I watched my parents fight about it. So I made this vow. I said, I'm going to have enough money where I never have to worry about money and fight about that with my spouse. And again, like, that served me really well. It's what drove me to go become successful and get a bunch of, so the thing worked, right? But the second half of that, like, I'll never worry about money. Well, that actually equated in my brain to being responsible with money. So I'm not going to worry. I'm going to spend freely. And we have this idea that abundance is good and scarcity is bad. Right? If we could just think more abundant thoughts. Well, I was the most abundant guy on the planet. I was indiscriminately spending money because I just thought more would show up. Like, I could have used a little scarcity. So neither of those are good on its head. It's okay. How is this story showing up in my behavior, right? And this is the same reason. I had a client one time. He'd sold his company for $16 million. He had all of that money in a savings account. He hadn't bought himself like a new pair of shoes. He hadn't taken a vacation. He was still working 80-hour weeks for his acquirer. And he told me that his greatest fear was that he couldn't send his kids to college. Well, that's not matching up with reality. Like, objectively, There's no way that could ever become a reality. But that story is running the show in the background. So the process, how do you start to unwind this? First of all, it's to look at all the events that formed our stories around money and start to understand, get the insight. Like, where is this coming from? Where did this idea that it could all be taken away at any moment actually come from? once we have that insight, now we can start to repattern. And it's noticing like, okay, where is my reality not matching up with my subconscious? And let me bring those subconscious thoughts, the subconscious, this could all be taken away. Let me bring that into the conscious and start to actually work with the data in front of me and start to repattern that belief over time. And the only way to repattern is to catch yourself in the belief and then start to take an action. And where a lot of people get stuck, and this is, kind of my beef with therapy, is we get addicted to the insight. Oh, well, I saw my dad doing this, and that's why I do this. Then we stop, right? Because the insight feels really valuable, and it is. But okay, now what am I going to do with that? What action am I going to take to start repatterning my brain and rewire my subconscious story? And so the action piece is really good. So, I'll assign people homework. I had a client one time that, she was crushing it. I mean, she had a very large business, would not spend money on herself. So I was like, your homework is to go buy something at an uncomfortable level of value just for you. And like her face went pale. Like she was like physically ill, even thinking about going and spending a large amount of money on herself, right? But then she did it. She forced herself to go do it. And then all of a sudden that started repetition. She was like, oh, that actually felt really good. Right. And we just repeat that until enough times. And then now all of a sudden that story is no longer running the show. And the last piece I'll say on this is that the idea is not to get rid of these patterns. It's to become a choice with them. Right. So, I really don't believe we can never really truly get rid of this thing. But is it running the show? Or is it something that I'm aware of, I can arrest, and I can repattern in the moment? Because it'll keep showing up, right? So even my tendency to want to invest in wild deal, that still shows up for me from time to time. The difference is I just know how to arrest it. I've built some processes that keep me from falling back into that same thing.
Love that. And I love what you said about the parents, right? That plays a big part in things. But I also think in therapy, it's sort of a rite of passage to say, okay, let's go back to your childhood. Let's talk about your parents. This must have been their fault. It was all ingrained in you, and this is why you're that way. And I think too many people blame their parents for everything that went wrong in their life, or that's going wrong or the way that they're thinking. But if you're going to lay at the feet all of your downfalls that your parents, bowing down to everything that they contributed wrong into your life, you also, to some degree, need to flip that over and say all these great things, if all these bad things are because of the parents that I had and how I grew up and the childhood that I had, then all of these great things are also because of that. Some might say it's in spite of it, but at the same time, right, you had this thought of, all right, there's this thing that's ingrained in me. I needed to fight for accomplishment to get, noticed at the dinner table in front of my brothers and sisters. And that was something that really drove you to be like, okay, this is going to actually serve me really well. So it's kind of like, screw you, mom and dad, you did this thing to me. But I can't really say that because it was because of that I've become this person that I am today. And all these lessons that I've had to learn are because of these things that I went through. And none of that would have happened. I don't know where I would have been if I didn't go through this thing in the first place. So thank you.
And when it comes to parents, here's what I know for people is, first of all, we're just looking for where the patterns got ingrained. It's not about blame. It's not about necessarily healing with our parents or confronting them and telling them how they fucked you up or whatever it is. It's just going, okay, but what did I take on that wasn't mine? So this is a very internal process. And you don't have to blame your parents. Number one, they were doing the best they could. It was their first time being a parent, right? They were doing the best they could with the information they had. And no one gets out of childhood without imprints. One of my favorite coaching stories is this woman one time said, my biggest problem is that my parents love me too much. They love me so unconditionally that when I became an adult, I assumed everyone would love me that way. And I treated my husband like shit, and I treated my kids like shit because I assumed everyone would love me like my parents did. And as soon as you said that, I was like, oh man, we are all fucked. Like
Yeah.
like, there's nothing you can do to not imprint stuff on your child, right? So I think that's allows us to sort of separate like blame or, kind of what you're pointing to. It's like, I'm not really worried about blaming my parents. All I'm looking for is, how did these patterns form? How are they showing up in my life? And how can they repattern in a way that will actually serve me rather than run the subconscious and cause me to self-sabotage? So that's really the work, is just like, yeah, cool, I see where this came from. And by the way, go do the healing work if you need to heal with your parents, right? That's like sort of a separate process. The process that I'm pointing to is like, how's this showing up in my life? How's it running the show? And how can I get rid of that?
And how, I guess it's going to be very different for everybody, because there's one thing to identify with it and say, okay, I understand where it comes from, but now I still have no idea what to do with it.
Yeah.
I very much understand where my money issues come from. My, mom and dad, they didn't have anything. They never talked about money, but there was always a sense in the household that we didn't have anything. And that's why I still have this empty feeling inside that I still don't have anything and I'm scared about money. I recognize that this is the case. Okay, that's cool. I've come to terms with it, but now what the hell do I do with that? How do I get out of this cycle? Like I can separate the understanding that this isn't me. I can understand that this is where this is coming from. I don't want to be this anymore. But I also don't have another path forward that I see clearly enough to go down to make sure that I don't end up in the same cycle.
Such an excellent question. So I think once we've got the insight, you see, okay, number one, I'm having an outsized reaction, or I'm engaging in a subconscious behavior that's not serving me. So that's the awareness piece. Then the insight piece is what you just think. Okay, I see where this came from. My parents acted a certain way. That's where I got this. And this is what I've said. People love to get stuck in the insight piece because it feels like you're actually doing something. It's, the aha feels really good, but it doesn't actually change anything. So now once you have the insight, you have to start taking action. And for me, there's two processes that need to run simultaneously. One is the emotional fix. Okay, how do I start doing the work? Maybe it's through healing, some of those stories. And then what's a mechanical fix? And both of those need to be there. So for instance, like when I talk about this high risk, high reward investor mindset that I was carrying with me, this risk addiction. Okay, number one, I can start doing the work to heal the parts of me that needed to feel seen and validated through showing my wealth, via investment. I can work on that, but I can also hire a wealth manager to be between me and my money, so that while I'm doing this emotional work of the worthiness piece, if the pattern starts to come back up, now I've actually placed a physical barrier between me and my money. And when I want to make a crazy investment, I can go to him and be like, hey, is this a good idea? And he's going to talk me out of it, right? And like I said, I do this for a living. Like I have helped hundreds of people heal their money stories. And like 6 months ago, an investment came across my desk. I've been angel investment free since 2021. I'm really proud of that. I've got my 5-year chip. But not that long ago, a friend brought an investment across my desk, and I was like, oh, well, this is the deal of a lifetime. I definitely can't pass this up. Like the story started spinning up again.
Yeah.
As much work as I've done on this, same loop started to take hold, but now I have a system in place. I went to my wealth manager and I was like, hey, I want to invest in this thing. And we spent an hour, and he was basically like, here's all the downsides. Here's the things you're not seeing. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is a terrible idea. Actually, I was just trying to feel that same thing of like being recognized, being the hero in the story that gave these guys their start. And I don't need to do that anymore. And this would have actually been a bad financial decision for my family. And so both of those were working in tandem to actually arrest the pattern and rewrite the story.
Well, they show up in 2021. My name is Mike. I'm an investaholic. And then they're like, that never dies. And somebody else is like swirling the investment around under your nose. And all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I remember that. That seems like a good idea.
Totally. And this is the thing, is like, a lot of times with self-help or doing this work, we think about fixing. Like, you can't fix some of these. They're deeply ingrained in your subconscious. You can just build systems that help you, repattern over time. And so, the trap would have been of like, no, I fixed my angel investment thing. No, I'm constantly vigilant. Like, is this surfacing again? And if it does, can I make a better choice in the future?
How do you talk to your kids about money?
This is
I don't know if you got another 2 hours to go on this podcast or not. I don't know if that opened up another can of worms, but
full sound.
We're talking about trauma and healing, and like nobody is getting out of this without any sort of imprinted understanding of however they grew up, right? For good, for bad, for better, for worse, whatever that looks like. But how do you propose, knowing what you're going through, how do you start talking to your kids about money, and at what age does this start to become an important topic of conversation? What do you stay away from?
Yeah, great question. Lots of flavors. Number one, the worst thing you can do, which is what many boomer parents did, was not talk about money at all, because kids are way more aware than you think. They know, like 7 or 8, they know that money's important. They see money all around them, and then a lot of times parents will just not talk about it at all. And I think that's super damaging, because now you're leaving the kid to draw their own conclusion. Newsflash, they're probably not going to draw the right conclusions about money. So I try to bring this conversation into the forefront in my family. And like, number one, we have more than a lot of their friends. And my kids know that. We live in a giant ass house. I drop my kids off at school in a Lamborghini. Like, they're acutely aware that they have something that the other kids don't, right? So how do I broach that? Well, number one, I like to, I had a great conversation with my son recently. Like, hey, you notice that not a lot of the other dads drive Lamborghinis, right? And he's like, yeah, pretty cool. How do you think I got this? And he was like, well, you worked really hard. I said, I did work really hard. That's part of the story, but I also took big risks. There were sleepless nights. Like, being an entrepreneur is really hard. Do you think that's something that you're interested in? And he thought about it for a minute, and he was like, I don't know. And I was like, would it feel better to you to like work at a big company where you did a job and you had security, or do you think it would be more fun to like take big risks and be an entrepreneur? And he was like, I think I want to work at a big company. That feels better to me. And a lot of times, Carl Jung says like the burden of a child is living their parents' unlived dreams.
Yeah.
As entrepreneurs, we found a thing that works for us, so we assume it must work for everybody else. So I talk to entrepreneurs all the time. Like, I'm doing all this stuff to make my kid an entrepreneur. Like, is your kid suited to be an entrepreneur? Like, I mean, not everybody is. In fact, most people are not, right? Like, yes, we might have higher upside, but like, employees aren't staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. worrying about how they're going to make payroll, right? Like, there are a lot of downsides to being an entrepreneur. And in fact, my position is you should only be an entrepreneur if you're completely unemployable, because you're probably going to actually live a much less stressful life as an employee than you are an entrepreneur. And we lionize this culture. We assume that everybody should be doing this thing, but we realize most people aren't suited for this thing. So I try not to project my experience, what works for me, onto my kids, and show them the thought process of forging their own path, and let them know that, like, I don't need them to be anything to love them. I don't need you to be financially successful. I don't need you to be a sports star, but let me help you start finding what you like and find your own path. And so, that's where the money conversation starts, as far as like my kids' development, and then trying to expose them to people who don't have as much as we do. And I think this is a really important conversation. It's one that we're talking about often, of like, how do we really do this? I think it can be, damaging to like take a 6-year-old to a soup kitchen, and where they're seeing something, like, they're just not emotionally prepared for some of that stuff. So like, now as my kids are getting older, we're talking a lot about how do we expose them with an appropriate level that they can handle, to understanding that there's a lot of people in the world that don't have what we have, and how do we use our resources to make things better for others. And that's the other piece that I think is really important. and may lead them to find that more clean fueled, purpose driven career earlier than, some of us did, where it was like, I'm going to prove to the world that I'm worthy through building. Like, maybe I can help them find a more purpose driven path earlier in life by recognizing some of those things.
I had a really. This episode is sponsored by New Vision Projects, and everybody has heard the horror stories that happen. They have a friend of a friend or a neighbor that's been renovating for years on end, or they've been building a home and it just hasn't gone the way that it needed to go. Budgets are blown through the roof, timelines, forget about them. New Vision Projects has an incredibly strong track record for over 15 years of working with customers, serving them at the highest level. If you are considering building or renovating, check them out on Instagram at New Vision Projects or at newvisionprojects.com. Building the homes you want with the confidence you need. New Vision has you covered. Let them show you why they're different. Back to the show. Awesome opportunity. Went down to Mexico with a group of people, and we've been able to build homes down there and serve at orphanages and bring toys and food and sit there with the kids and play with them, and it was wildly eye-opening, man. Like, I'm in the world of, hey, we're building luxury stuff, and you're seeing, we're getting complaints from homeowners where like the color of the caulking doesn't exactly match with the cabinets and so it's like peeling it off and spending thousands of dollars to like just get it right and custom tint this stuff. And it's like, I get that that's what we're doing, but when we go down to Mexico and we're on the side of this hill, essentially it's like a giant village on top of a landfill, and there's a family that has a child, their second one on the way. They're living on dirt, and when it rains, the dirt comes in underneath the walls, which are essentially just like scrap pieces of aluminum. And she's about to give birth in this house, and their plan is to give birth in this house, and they don't have anything. And we go and we put down a concrete slab, 4 walls, a roof, and make it waterproof. For them, like, that's luxury. Like, they don't care about paint colors. They don't care about anything. They care that they have this place to live. And the fact that, we're able to bring some food and go and sit down with these kids and play, and, bring food for the, some of the dogs in the neighborhood and whatever. I mean, this is the other extreme level of poverty that we're talking about, where like these types of conversations about money mindset, I mean, it doesn't even matter because they're not even at this survival level yet. Right. They're not thinking about Lambos, but this is the part of that thing where at 4 years old, 5 years old, you probably can't comprehend that. But as you get to be 9 years old, 10 years old, I'm very excited to be able to have the opportunity to take my daughters down there and start seeing and exposing them to just a very other way of life, because where they are right now, I mean, they're quite insulated from all of that, but the world is vast. It's huge, and all walks of life, man. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Travel brings incredible perspective. I actually just got back from Africa. It was an amazing experience, but really very heavy. Like we tend to be caught up in our own politics, and whatever side you're on, you think the other side's the worst and America's falling apart. You go to a place like South Africa and you're like, oh, they have like real problems that we can't even fathom in the US. And it allows you to kind of loosen your grip on some of the identity politics that are happening, in our country, and realize like, oh man, like we got an existential lottery ticket being born here, and we can lose sight of that, but it's real.
My wife's from South Africa. That's where she was born, and her dad's been, spent his majority of his life there before they moved to Canada. We went there in 2020, just like literally what COVID hit. We left February 28th, 2020. We came back March 14th. It was like we left and COVID, we'd never heard of it. And a week into the trip, people were sending me messages saying, hey, you should maybe come home. Like, things are wild here. You're probably going to have to quarantine. I was like looking around. I was like, this is wild. What are you talking about? Anyways, that's another story. But South Africa, 100%. Like, you look at the poverty line between the haves and the have-nots, and the families that are living in the gated communities versus those that are waking up and they're on the streets just hoping that they're going to get picked up for work to make a couple of bucks. Like it's very real. Like that line is hard to find in the in the sand. And it's a beautiful place, but my goodness, yeah, you're right. Like you don't see that type of poverty divide even in a lot of the areas of the States, even in the like a lot of areas in Canada. It's and Africa's a huge place. There's just so many people there.
Totally. There's just a level of suffering that is really hard, I think, for a lot of Westerners to even comprehend, right? So my point here is like exposing kids to different ways of life and like, you know, trying to just have real conversations. Like we have conversations. You know, we don't like share our whole net worth yet. We probably will eventually. I also think a really damaging thing that happens is, and again, back to boomers, you don't share anything, but they leave a will, they eventually pass away, and then we see all the time like the siblings fighting about money and like families getting divided up about this thing. So another thing I encourage people to do is like talk to your aging parents about the will, about their intentions, like talk about everything, how it's going to be divided up before they pass, so that you don't have to leave anything up to interpretation. That can be a really uncomfortable conversation, but wow, you can save yourself so much. Like I've seen so many families torn apart fighting over inheritance, whereas like that could have been mitigated by just having a real conversation about here's what we have, here's our intentions, here's kind of how it's going to go. You just save so much heartache. So, I don't know the right answer on how to talk to kids about money, except for talk to kids about money.
Yeah. Mike, this book coming out right now, I'm very excited for this. The fact that like you've put your heart and soul into it. Out of writing the book, what are you hoping that when people read this book that they're gonna learn from it? What are you hoping that they're gonna do with it? What is the key overarching message that you've been putting 2.5 years of work into? You're about to release it into the world. What do you want people to walk away with after reading this thing?
So the title of the book is Be Rich Now, How to Want Everything You Have. And I really love the subtitle. It actually really shaped
I love that
book because it's got some layered meanings. You might hear it at first and be like, oh, he's going to tell me to just be happy with what I have. That's actually not it. It's about so much more than contentment. It's about this process of asking everything in your life, is this serving me? And arriving at a place, through doing the work, doing the internal work with your relationship to money, evaluating the things you have, the things you want, and really getting to a place where everything in your life, nothing is out of place. It's all serving you. It's all chosen consciously. And then from that place, now you can start to dream bigger. Now you can start to dive into these purpose-driven, service-driven dreams because you've answered the question of how much is enough for me personally. I know that more is not going to fill a hole, right? But I do know what does fill that hole, and that's serving others. And so that's the process that I walk people through is, first of all, how do I get my life into alignment and answer what's enough so that I can actually serve at a deeper level and dream bigger than I ever thought possible?
What's the release date?
We are still circling it, but hopefully late August is kind of where we are. But I'll send you the website, BeRichNow.com. You can sign up, get the first chapter, and be the first to know.
Love it, man. We'll put that in the show notes. Well, Mike, this has been an absolute masterclass and an absolute pleasure having you here, brother. Thank you for so much for taking some time out of your busy monk schedule, as you put it, to sit down with us and chat with our audience, brother. Really appreciate you.
I appreciate you. You asked really great questions. This was a fun interview.
Where can people find you if they want to connect?
Yes, check me out on Instagram at mbrown.co. I actually write more on Twitter. It's my kind of favorite platform. So it's mbrown_co. And then my newsletter, which you will sign up for if you go to BeRichNow.com and get the first chapter. I write long form essays every week on meaning, purpose, and what makes a truly rich life. It's one of my favorite things I do. So check me out there, and hope to see you out there.
We'll get all the information in the show notes. Appreciate you. And to all the listeners that are out there and still with us, as always, I'm here rooting for you to win. Stay blessed. Have a great day. Rock and roll. Peace.